Opening the diagonal for the king's bishop immediately challenges central influence and prepares rapid piece development. Pirc defense initiated. The pawn shields the king, immediately creating a less common pawn structure and preparing a flexible development. Pawn storming the center immediately establishes white's presence and aims for rapid development, seeking to restrict black's options. Developing the knight immediately pressures the central pawn, creating dynamic central tension and potentially opening lines for counterplay. Unleashing a bishop's potential to prepare kingside castling. This offers white solid central control while hinting at future aggressive intentions. Bringing a knight to c6 directly challenges the center, aiming to contest central space and prepare for potential pawn advances in the d and e files. Preparing a swift kingside fianchetto or a central pawn thrust. White prioritizes flexible development over immediate central occupation, challenging the knight's outpost while subtly preparing a queenside expansion. Safeguarding the monarch opens up central pawn play and prepares for piece development. Instigating a knight exchange. Black seeks to disrupt white's central pawn structure and gain an outpost for their remaining knight. Recapturing this way opens the c-file and strengthens the center, though it creates a slightly passive pawn structure. Shaping the kingside pawn structure with g6 aims to secure the king and prepare for a fianchetto, though it can create weaknesses. Developing the knight to a natural square aims to control central squares and prepare for kingside expansion. Developing the bishop to the long diagonal aims to pressure white's kingside and prepare for castling. Enhancing piece harmony. Opening lines for white's pieces and creating a forward pawn chain that aims to disrupt black's central development. An aggressive knight excursion, eyeing the weakened light squares around white's king. Challenging the knight's outpost immediately tightens the kingside and prepares central expansion. Sacrificing central influence for a quick knight repositioning. This maneuver aims to disrupt white's pawn chain, though it leaves the kingside somewhat exposed for now. Challenging black's ambitious knight by pinning the bishop and potentially opening a diagonal. Offers white promising attacking chances. Black endeavors to solidify the pawn chain and potentially prepare a queenside expansion, while white's knight on g4 remains a thorn. Unleashing the queen aims to solidify central control and pressure black's less developed pieces. The knight's sortie to f5, while seemingly active, exposes it to immediate pressure and might overextend black's position. Shifting the bishop to this square enhances white's queenside pressure and eyes the d6 pawn, subtly complicating black's defensive structure. Bringing the king to safety completes a crucial stage of development and prepares for potential pawn advances. Unlocking the e-file after the pawn exchange creates immediate attacking possibilities. Reclaiming the center pawn opens up lines and prepares development. But watch for white's central pawns becoming a target. Challenging the pawn chain. White liberates the d-file, aiming to crack open black's central structure. The knight boldly ventures into the central fray, challenging white's pawn structure and eyeing key squares. Clearing the d-file grants white immediate central control, aiming to exploit black's slightly exposed king. Black repositions the bishop, reinforcing the central advance and eyeing potential weaknesses on the queenside. The bishop relocates, seeking to disrupt black's kingside pawn structure and potentially create weaknesses around the castled king. Securing the dark squared bishop's long diagonal presence now prepares for aggressive central pawn pushes. Sacrificing the bishop clears the dark squares, potentially opening attacking lines for white's queen. The black king's promenade exposes it to potential discoveries and undermines crucial defensive pawn structures. Striking at the d6 pawn instantly disrupts black's pawn structure and aims to exploit the open C file for the rook. Opening the B file offers dynamic counterplay, though it weakens the queenside pawn structure significantly. This knight's leap to the center creates immediate threats against black's castled king and aims to exploit the open central files. Opening the D file creates vital diagonal lines but frees your king to a more precarious position. Unleashing a powerful check. White targets the black king's precarious pawn shield, forcing a concession that opens lines for white's pieces. Securing the king's fortress and challenging white's central pawn thrust. This defensive maneuver aims to solidify black's pawn structure against further incursions. Securing the outpost on c5 dramatically enhances piece activity and restricts black's queenside mobility. Shifting the queen aims to solidify the center and potentially challenge white's queenside dominance. Bringing the other rook into the game aims to exploit the open central files and pressure black's exposed monarch. Aiding rook on the open file. This maneuver prepares to contest central space and supports potential breakthroughs. Unleashing the rook to the 8th rank creates immediate pressure, threatening checkmate and forcing black into a defensive posture. Securing the rook on the open file. This maneuver prepares to contest the critical D file and aims to disrupt white's initiative, concentrating forces on the kingside while black's pieces are passive. This repositions the rook to pressure the 8th rank and threaten breakthroughs. This rook repositions to a more active square, eyeing open files and creating potential threats on the queenside. This pawn advance shores up the central space and prepares to launch a queenside expansion, potentially restricting black's mobility. Challenging the queenside structure. This pawn thrust aims to pry open lines and disrupt white's coordination. Securing the queenside expansion against further inroads. Though it cedes some tempo and pawn structure integrity, this gambit sacrifices pawns for initiative and aims to break open lines near white's king. Opening the file for your rook finally allows it to penetrate the enemy position, consolidating the bishop to support the queenside pawn majority while anticipating a potential knight maneuver. Unleashing the rook onto the open 8th rank offers potent pressure. Reclaiming the queen and centralizing its influence offers a defensive bulwark and potential counter-attacking avenues. This rook lift creates immediate pressure, forcing black to defend meticulously or face severe consequences for their king. Sacrificing the rook offers no compensation and leaves the king exposed on the open king file. A decisive fork that rips open the king's defenses and wins material, dramatically altering the game's complexion.